Hey everyone, let's wrap up March and start with the videos I uploaded. I managed again to upload 4 weekend reading vlogs, and I'm quite happy that I'm staying consistent on those, and I'm quite happy that you watch them and comment and like them. Thank you very much for that. So now let's get into the books that I read, and let's randomly start with the one physical book I finished or read this month. It was Blackouts, and I really enjoyed the way this book was written. More than the content probably, but the way that it was written really kept me glued to the pages. So what is this about? This book is about a narrator visiting a friend who is about to die in some place they call the palace, and the friend is many years older. They are both gay, and they met in an asylum where they both were put when being gay was considered a disease, and that's how they met. We hear a lot about their past, their individual past, the stories they tell us about themselves, their experiences, and also we hear a lot about the books that the older man is connected with and wants the young man to write a story about and tell a story about. And these books are sex variants, which are research books about homosexuality and different cases. But the books that the older man has are blacked out. So a lot of the text has been blacked out, so we have poems instead of the full text. And these poems or these blacked out pages are part of this book. They are interspersed in the narration. They don't interrupt it really because it's not a linear narration. We get snippets here, snippets there, we get the present, we get the past, we get some background information, all mixed in a very captivating way. I really liked how this is presented. I also really liked how we get to know the characters, how we get to see them and experience their experiences through their eyes and get the background on these books and the times, and also some background knowledge or history on homosexuality and its perception in general. And I really enjoyed reading this. Let's move on to ebooks. I read the 4th installment of The Husky and His White Cat, Shizun, which I'm trying to finish the series, and it's a reincarnation cultivation story where we have cultivators who are practicing martial arts and things like that to become more enlightened. And the cultivation stories usually have some form of heavenly realm, some form of mortal realm, and some form of ghostly realm. Here we have a lot of demons, and we are following a young man who has been reincarnated from his older evil self into his teenage self before all the events happened that made him evil. And it's also a love story with a little love triangle between the young man and a fellow cultivator, but also the young man and the master have a very strange relationship throughout the years and throughout their first life or past life and their present life now. I'm mostly enjoying the story, even though I really would like that things would not be stretched out with misunderstandings all the time. So while I am invested in the story, the fantasy parts are a little less than I would like. There's a lot more focus on the interactions between the characters, and also a lot more sex than I expected, and also misunderstandings a lot. So the 4th book was mostly repetitions and repetitive, so we didn't really move much forward in the story, and things could have been said much faster. Would I recommend the series? Only if you're really interested in all these things. I feel like mostly punishing myself because I want to finish the series, and I don't know. I keep hoping that we get over the misunderstandings, leave the love triangle behind, and focus on the fantasy more. But I don't think that's going to happen. I have 5 more books to go. The other ebook I finished was A Dream of Trees, which is another backlog book by the authors that I'm trying to read up on, and I enjoyed it. I keep mentioning that this is a lot of death in a lot of different ways, so please be aware when you go into this book, because we follow 2 characters who meet when one is about to die and the other is a character who says, hey, I'm accompanying you through your rooms and make dying for you simpler, or something like that. And The other person, the dying person, is like, yeah, no, I don't need that. I don't really need you here. So we learn a lot about those two people. We learn a lot about what the dying companion's job is or what they do. They basically have a doorknob, so they open doors to rooms which are parts of memories of the people who are dying that they have to deal with, so that they can move on into the afterlife with less regret and less whatever you have that's negative. And the dying person is more like, I have eidetic memory, I don't have regrets, I remember everything, I didn't forget anything. And we see those two people moving through different rooms of different people. That's why we see a lot of people dying in gruesome and harrowing ways. But overall, the story moves on, and we find out how all of it is connected and how those two characters are connected and how things continue. I really enjoyed that part, seeing the characters evolve and how things moved on for them. I really enjoyed moving through these different people's lives and seeing the regrets they have. It was nothing groundbreaking, but it was overall enjoyable. The rest of the books I read were audiobooks. So let's start with nonfiction, The Comfort Crisis. I wasn't completely convinced by this book. The idea is that we are all a little bit too comfortable and we need to do more hard things, which I have heard a lot about in recent months. And it's a theme that's been going through the self-improvement world in all the New Year's resolution things. And I've noticed myself that I benefit from not only doing the easy things, but also pushing myself a little bit. But that's the thing, a little bit. This book is giving us a lot of background information and theory, which was nice, but it's all packed into a really wild trip of the author going elk hunting, moose hunting in Alaska, and really pushing his limits very far. And yeah, I didn't care about the hunting part and all the things that he learned there. A lot of it is he's a journalist, so he can do all these extreme things. People with jobs and lives and families have it a little bit harder when you can't take days and months off your routine and everyday life to push in these extreme hard challenges. So I like the idea of doing harder things, but I would not really recommend this book, honestly. The opposite is true of The Last Dragon of the East. This is another fantasy book, and even though this book is very light on the world building, very light on what is actually happening, it is very captivating on the characters. We start off meeting a young man who can see the red thread of fate. This is like the red thread that's tied between your finger and your fated one. And he can see them, so he helps people find their fated ones. But the problem is his red thread is gray, so he's been always shy or weary of following it to find his fated one. But then events happen, the emperor comes to town and for reasons makes him go and find the last dragon, because this world has dragons. And I really enjoyed the idea that the world building and the beginning was really fast paced. We were introduced to the world, we were getting a very simple build up of what is happening and who's who, and then we find ourselves in a long stretch of him finding the dragon, meeting the dragon, and the events that connect them and how they get to know each other. It is a romance story because we're talking of fated ones. And I really enjoyed the long middle part, which was very low on fantasy and events. It was more on those two people talking about past lives and just moving on. And then the ending was more fast-paced again, wrapping things up. And I really enjoyed this. It was a very entertaining, captivating, standalone fantasy with dragons. Something completely different was Nevada, which I listened to next. I had that on my wish list and I completely forgot why, but I was looking for something about the length of that book, and I thought, why not pick that, as I'm trying to read books from my wish list mainly. And I enjoyed this. We are following a young trans woman who is really messing up her life. And the first part, we see her talking about her life, where she is now. She's transitioned a few years ago. She's a little bit stuck in her relationship. She's a little bit stuck in her job. She's not good at anything. She's just normal, trying to pass and get through the day. And then events happen and her normal reaction is to just run away and fix it by, I'm just going somewhere else. Where she meets someone where she thinks that's a trans person and I'm going to help them. And then we see those two together. In my edition, I also had an afterword, which I think helped because the ending is very unsatisfying in the book in general, but the afterword was, I think, 10 years after the first publication. Definitely the author mentioned a little bit more about the writing, about what her intentions were and what her ideas were, and that helped me understand things a little bit more. Overall, I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed that it was a story of really messed up people, and I'm all there for messed up people all the time who are not perfect and don't tie a bow around everything when things ended. And that was very enjoyable. And then I went on a little bit of a Murderbot spree because I had a bad weekend and Murderbot is comfort. So I managed to listen to the first 6 books in the Murderbot Diaries series. I skipped the last book because that is a little bit anxiety inducing because Murderbot is dealing with trauma, and since I wasn't doing well, I wasn't going to listen to that again. So if you're new here and you've never heard me talk about Murderbot, honestly, how did you get here? Hi! The Murderbot Diaries is a science fiction series all following a security unit. This security unit is a human bot construct, and in this world, security units have a governor module in their brain that controls them or allows their owners to punish them if they do something that the owners don't want. This specific security unit hacked its governor module because of reasons that we find out during the books. The first book basically introduces us to the character, and because it hacked its governor module but didn't really know what it wanted to do, it discovered media and shows. So it's been watching series, reading books, and spending a lot of time consuming media while still doing its job as a security unit. A half-assed job probably, but still. We also get introduced to its crew and the mission they're on. And in this first book, a lot of things go wrong, which lead the crew to find out that they have a rogue security unit, which usually people think means that they go on a murdering spree and kill everyone. But since Murderbot was busy watching shows and unsure what it wanted to do and really socially awkward, and interacting with people is really hard for it. So that's the first book. The second and the third, we see Murderbot on different planets going on missions on its own and meeting different people. In the fourth book, it reconnects with the crew from the first book because it really likes them. Book 5 and 6 really go on different adventures with Murderbot. The fifth book is a full-length book, and it really is captivating and introduces or brings back a character that Murderbot met in book 2 and considers a friend. And I love the series. It's so enjoyable, it's so entertaining, the world is captivating, the characters are captivating, and I really like Murderbot. Really do. So if you have until now resisted to start the series for whatever reason, if you're interested in science fiction, I really don't see any reason why you haven't started it yet. So go for it and let me know if you started it and what you think. 2 more books to go. The last one I listened to is also science fiction, and it's the new John Scalzi book, When the Moon Hits Your Eye, and I listened to that in one day. I couldn't stop. The moon turns into cheese, and every chapter is a day after people discovered that the moon has turned into cheese and how people react. We jump from various people in varying different situations and positions throughout America. Some reappear on later days and others we never hear of again. And I really enjoyed this. It is hilarious as usual. It is very creative, and the ideas that people have when the moon turns to cheese and what it does to society. It was so uplifting. Highly recommend, especially if you like John Scalzi, and the audiobook was super fun to listen to. Unlike the last book, in Universes, I tried this. I was expecting a multiverse story, but it got confusing, and at some point I lost completely track of where we are, when we are, who we're following, if this is connected to an earlier chapter, and I don't know. It's probably a combination of me listening to it and my brain really not being able to differentiate. And the more convoluted things got, the more confused I got. That's why I stopped listening and put it aside for now. Maybe I'll pick up a physical book or an ebook. Probably a physical book is best to skip back and forth, because I did like the idea and I did like the characters mostly, but as I said, things got completely weird at some point, and that's where it lost me. And that was my March. A lot of good books, a lot of fun reading, a lot of rereading, and a lot of audiobooks. But that's how life is. Let me know in comments how your March was. Did you read good things? Did you have any new anticipated books that came out? What's happening in your reading life? Tell me in comments. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.